He drove strangers through the night just to keep the lights on, never missed a bill, never missed her school meetings. But on her graduation day, she stepped up to the microphone and revealed a secret that shattered him. What she was hiding will break your heart and restore your faith in family. Los Angeles never really sleeps. And neither did Samuel. Most nights, while the rest of the city slowed down, he was just getting started, behind the wheel of his decade-old Toyota Corolla, logging into his Uber app and hoping the night would be kind. Some rides were quiet, some were chaotic. But every single one was a step toward rent, tuition fees, and groceries for the week. Samuel had been doing this for nearly 6 years, ever since his wife, Janelle, passed away after a long battle with lupus. One moment she was the heart of their home, the next he was both the heart and the hands. Raising a daughter alone? In a city that felt more expensive every month wasn't what he planned, but life didn't ask for his permission. His daughter, Amara, was 15 when he started driving nights. Now she was 17, on the verge of high school graduation. Samuel had done everything in his power to shield her from the weight he carried, the overdue bills he kept hidden in a drawer, the nights he skipped meals so she wouldn't notice the fridge was half empty, or the physical toll the long shifts took on his back and knees. Still, no matter how exhausted he felt, Samuel made one promise to himself. Amara would never feel like she lacked anything. She would walk into her future knowing she was loved, safe, and worthy of the world. Amara, on the other hand, was different. From other teenagers, she didn't fuss over designer clothes. She never asked for the latest phone or flashy sneakers. Instead, she buried herself in books, studied late into the night, and always seemed to have a quiet look in her eyes, the kind that said she was holding something back. Sometimes, Samuel would knock softly on her door around midnight when he got home from a shift. She'd open it, bleary-eyed, smile, and say, "Welcome home, Dad." And sometimes her light was already off, but he swore he could hear whispered phone calls or the faint sound of typing. He'd ask, "Everything okay, sweetheart?" And she'd always say the same thing, "I'm proud to be your daughter." Those 7 words kept him going. Even on nights when tips were low and exhaustion crept into his bones, those words lit a fire in his chest. He thought maybe she just appreciated his hard work. Maybe she saw how much he was sacrificing. But he didn't know the half of it. There was a quiet secret living under their roof, something Amara was carefully hiding behind smiles, schoolwork and long nights pretending to study, a truth that would remain hidden, until the moment she stood on stage in front of 1,000 people and looked straight into his eyes. And in that moment, everything Samuel thought he knew about his daughter, about their life, would change forever. To the world, Amara Lewis was a quiet, brilliant teenager with a good head on her shoulders. At school, teachers praised her discipline, friends admired her kindness, and guidance counselors said she had a future brighter than most. But behind her calm demeanor and perfect grades, Amara lived a life no one saw, not even the man who mattered most. Each afternoon after school, she would walk home with friends like any other kid, wave goodbye at the corner, and slip inside their modest apartment. She'd give her dad a hug if he was still there before his Uber shift, make herself a sandwich, and then change clothes out of her school uniform and into a plain black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. Then she'd sneak out again. Most nights, Samuel thought Amara was at study groups. A P chemistry, late prep, group project, she'd say with a tired smile, and he believed her. Why wouldn't he? But the truth was far more complicated. Amara had been working secretly for nearly 2 years at a 24-hour diner, tucked between a car wash and a pawn shop in Koreatown. The place smelled like burnt coffee and fryer grease, but to her, it was a second home. The owner, Mr. Malik, was a Pakistani immigrant who had once shared a hospital waiting room with Amara's mother years ago. When Amara came to him asking for work, he didn't ask for papers. He saw something in her eyes, grief, determination, and fire. He gave her the graveyard shifts, paid her cash under the table, and told her she reminded him of his own daughter. Back home, Amara worked quietly, took orders, cleaned counters, and refilled coffee cups for truckers and night owls. She kept her head down and her dreams close. In her backpack, buried under her apron, she carried college brochures, scholarship forms, and a spiral notebook filled with draft essays scrawled in between orders. Every tip she made, every extra shift she covered, went into a shoebox hidden beneath a loose floorboard under her bed. She labeled it in her neat handwriting, "Dad's piece, my dream." Amara didn't want to help out because they were poor. She wanted to help because she saw the toll it took on her father. The limp he tried to hide when he came home. The way he sighed at the kitchen table, staring at overdue bills he thought she never saw. She couldn't bear to watch him give so much without giving something back. So she made a plan, get a full ride. Buy her own books, cover her own cap and gown, and when the time was right, when the world was watching, she'd reveal the truth, not for applause, but for him. He thought she was just trying to finish high school, but Amara was building a future. One shift, one scholarship, one silent sacrifice at a time. The morning of graduation bloomed bright and golden over Los Angeles. It felt like a new chapter was waiting to be written, but for Samuel it was just another milestone. Important, yes, but one of many. He didn't expect any surprises. He didn't know his world was about to shift. He rose early, ironed his one good shirt twice, polished his old black shoes, and ran to the corner store for a $12 bouquet of flowers wrapped in plastic. He didn't have much, but he wanted Amara to feel special. As he drove himself to the ceremony venue, a sea of folding chairs arranged on the high school football field, he kept thinking, "I made it. We made it." He sat alone in a row of other proud parents, clutching the flowers and smiling at the stage. Other families brought balloons and signs, but Samuel brought what he always brought: quiet pride and deep, unwavering love. The ceremony began. Principal's speech, valedictorian, names called one after another, then her name, Amara Lewis. She stepped across the stage, radiant in her crimson graduation gown, head held high. The sun caught the edge of her gold honor sash. Samuel stood up instantly, clapping so hard his palms stung. Tears pooled in his eyes. That's my baby girl. Years of late nights and sacrifices flooded his mind. Every moment, worth it. But then something happened. She didn't leave the stage. Instead, Amara turned, walked to the microphone, and took a deep breath. The crowd grew quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause. "My name is Amara Lewis," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion echoing across the field. "And before I accept this diploma and walk off this stage, I need to tell the truth." Murmurs spread among the audience. Teachers glanced at each other. Samuel leaned forward, confused. "For the last 2 years," Amara continued, "I worked nights at a 24-hour diner while going to school full-time. I did this not because my father didn't provide for me, but because he gave me everything. Because he worked himself to the bone, driving strangers across this city just so I could dream." Bigger silence, then sniffles. Samuel's hands trembled. "I never told him," she said, voice breaking now, "because I didn't want him to worry. I didn't want him to feel guilty. I wanted to surprise him. Because today I'm not just graduating high school, I'm telling the world I got accepted into Stanford University. Full scholarship." Gasps rang out. Applause began softly, then swelled. Students cheered, parents stood, but Samuel couldn't move. He stared at his daughter, this young woman who had carried so much without telling him, and felt his chest tighten. His lips parted, but no words came. She looked down from the stage, eyes locking with his. "Dad, this is for you." And in that moment, Samuel Lewis, Uber driver, widower, quiet hero, realized he hadn't just raised a graduate. He'd raised a warrior. Samuel didn't hear the applause anymore. He didn't see the crowd rising to their feet or the cameras snapping pictures. For a few seconds, the entire world around him faded into stillness. All he could see was Amara, standing on that stage, strong, shining, and telling a story he never imagined was real. He had always thought he knew her. Every nuance of her voice, every smile, every sigh. But in that moment, he realized there had been a whole other world living just behind her quiet eyes. A world she had built in silence, for him. His hand shook. The bouquet of flowers he had held so tightly fell from his grip, forgotten. His knees buckled slightly, not from weakness, but from overwhelming emotion. He lowered himself slowly into the chair behind him, both hands on his chest, as if trying to hold his heart together. She worked nights while going to school full-time? She did it to protect me? The thoughts spiraled as he stared at her, now stepping down from the stage, diploma in hand, walking toward him through the cheering crowd. Parents leaned aside to let her pass. Teachers clapped with pride. Some were wiping their eyes. But Samuel sat frozen, completely undone. Amara reached him, her steps slowing when she saw his face, the raw, naked shock. Her father, the strongest man she knew, looked as if the ground beneath him had split open. "Dad," she whispered, kneeling down so she could meet him eye to eye. "I didn't want you to worry. I just wanted to lift some of the weight. You carried everything for so long, it was time someone carried you." Samuel reached for her hand, gripped it tightly, his eyes flooded. "I thought I was hiding the struggle from you, baby girl," he said, voice cracked and trembling. "I had no idea." "You were hiding yours from me?" Amara nodded slowly, tears running down her cheeks now. "I didn't want to be another burden. I wanted to be your reason to breathe easier." Samuel pulled her into the tightest embrace. He didn't care who was watching. For a moment, the father and daughter simply held each other, past the applause, past the noise, in the safety of shared sacrifice and love finally laid bare. People clapped louder now, inspired by the scene. A few nearby students even cheered her name, but none of that mattered. In Samuel's heart, time stopped. His daughter, the one he thought he was protecting, had been building wings behind his back. And now she was flying. And even more unbelievably, she was lifting him with her. He pressed his forehead to hers, smiling through tears. "You are the greatest thing I've ever done, Amara." She laughed through a sob. "We did it together?" Dad, in that moment Samuel didn't just feel proud. He felt free. That night, Los Angeles looked different. Maybe the skyline hadn't changed. Maybe the traffic still hummed through the streets, but for Samuel and Amara, everything felt lighter. The air seemed softer. The city that once felt so heavy on their shoulders now shimmered like a promise fulfilled. They sat side by side on the rooftop of their apartment building, an old 3-story structure tucked between a laundromat and a taco stand. Samuel had brought up 2 lawn chairs, a little Bluetooth speaker playing Otis Redding, and a blanket he'd kept from when Amara was a baby. No words were spoken at first. The silence between them was not awkward, it was sacred. Amara leaned back in her chair, the graduation cap resting in her lap, her eyes turned to the stars above. Beside her, Samuel sipped from a chipped mug of tea, gazing at her with quiet awe. Finally, he spoke. "You really did all that on your own?" Amara looked over at him, a soft smile forming. "Not really. I just followed your example." He chuckled, the kind of laugh that comes from deep inside the soul, the kind that only surfaces after a burden has been lifted. "I spent so long trying to protect you from this world," he said, "but you were building a new one right under my nose." Amara nodded, brushing away a tear. "I didn't want you to carry everything alone anymore. I saw what it was doing to you. You saw more than I thought you did." She turned to him. "You taught me how to be strong, Dad. I just needed you to rest for once." He stared out at the city, the same one he'd driven through 1,000 nights with aching joints and tired eyes, never imagining that while he was carrying her forward, she was quietly building a runway behind him. "I was scared," he admitted, "not about you growing up, but about letting go." "You don't have to let go," she said. "You just have to let me fly." He smiled. "You already are." They sat there, the city lights twinkling below them, the sound of distant sirens and laughter floating in the air. For the first time in years, Samuel didn't feel the need to check his app or worry about gas money. He didn't think about bills or next week's rent. Tonight, he rested. Amara reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder, her official Stanford letter. "Read it?" she asked. He took it gently, as if holding a treasure. After a few silent moments, he whispered, You're going to change the world, she grinned. Only because you changed mine first. And in that quiet rooftop moment under the stars, a father and daughter finally let go of the secrets that had weighed them down, and stepped fully into the strength that had always bound them together. Behind every quiet child might be a storm of sacrifice, and behind every hardworking parent, a dream they don't even know is growing. This isn't just a story about graduation. It's about two people who carried each other without ever saying a word. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded. Love speaks loudest in silence. And sometimes, the most powerful truth is the one we never expected to hear. If you were inspired by this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that touch the heart and open the mind.